Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. And I hope you guys had a fantastic lunch and a very fruitful morning with the monitoring and evaluation. I hope you can all hear me loud and clear. If I'm fading a bit, please note this is my connection, but I'm told that it's not going to give me problems. My session really is quite simple, is to take you through our online application form, navigate on our grant management system. And I would like to inform you guys that this site is not managed by NAC. We have a contract with Praxis. Those are the housing body for the system. And some of you, if you have used the online system on National Film and Video Foundation, you'll see that there's actually similarity. It's the same housing body. Yeah, getting to the beginning of everything, when we open a call, we then open the site, and the Praxis then makes it available for all interested applicants who want to enter into the system. As you know, all of us, when you want to apply online, you have to start first by registering. When you go on our site, you will navigate on our site, it will say call for funding, and then you will go to apply. Then when you go to apply, then it takes you straight to the Praxis, which will appear as it appears on the system, on the screen now, saying Grant Management System application for applications for project funding are for individuals and organizations. Closing, it will give you the closing date, and it will also give you the outcomes date. On your far left, I don't know from your side is far left or right, on my side is left, you will have login details. If you don't have login details, then you will have to click register. So for me, I have a dummy email address. I'm applying as an individual or an as an organization. These are my login details. It's my email and my password. Usually it will ask you to just have a simple email and just give you, or you can create just a simple password. Mine is simple, it's PL. And then when you log in, it takes you straight to the site where you will have two applications that will appear like this. Ignore the first one because that's what we've been using to test. So it will give you two options. You create for individual or you create for organizations. Then I'll click on the organization. Firstly, it will ask you the detail of the project title, which is a project name. Most of them they're saying it's the theme. Some will say project name, and we state as project title. Then you state it's Wonder Animation or something else. So depending what your interest is in terms of your theme, you write it there. And then you name the name of the organization. You state whether you're applying as an organization or an individual. And then I'm interested in applying as an organization. And then you go to disciplines. You will state from these disciplines, you know that NAC funds 7 disciplines: craft, dance, literature, multidisciplinary, music, theater, or visual arts. I would click on visual arts and then register. Then you have to click on register. When you click on register, it then populates. It gives you your funding, your application number, the name of your project, of course, and it will notify you that your application or your registration is successful. Then you continue. Then when you continue, the application is divided into 5 sections. I will focus on 4 sections. Later on, Fran will take you through to compliance. So the section 1 is about the organizational details. Section 2 is a project details. Section 3 is activity details. And the last section is the fourth, this number 4, which is about the budget. That's what it's important to a funder in an applicant anyway. So you start here with the information, with the company information or institution information, organizations. You state the organization. I'll just say Wonder World. And you'd state how many years you've existed. So you say a year or less than a year or 2 years, depending on how long the organization has been in existence. You state the number. If it's got a CK number, you will state the CK number, 21. Then you state 03. 1 to 10. Then text number, if it's got a text number, you also state the text number. If it doesn't have, you leave it blank. If you then you state the type of organization. I stated this PTY, then you click on PTY. And if you should specify if there isn't any of the listed one, you tell us. And then if it's got a website, it doesn't have a website, but an email address, that still suffices. And then you go to representatives, and I've stated my name as Buleng Lesala is the name of the coordinator. Usually around this section, it's important that you don't give the names of people that won't sign the contract. It's important that the person who's representing this application is the one who's prepared to sign on behalf of the organization. So as an organization, you need to speak that you are appointing Buleng Lesala as the coordinator, and you are prepared to be the one accountable to the NAC for writing the report, signing of your contract, and also accounting for every questions we're going to be asking. So then you state the gender. I think I'm not going to bore you with some of those things, and you state whether you're disabled or not. And very important that this is also mentioned, because that's also one of the panels they look at the nature of the application. Is if it's done on behalf of the organization by someone who's got a disability, it's important that it's indicated. Usually people leave this section behind, and then later on when we say the organization is not represented by a disabled person, then some will say, yes, I am, but I didn't indicate it there. I indicated as one of the beneficiaries. It's important that it's also important here that you fill it up. Date of birth, I'm not going to bore you with date of birth. I'm just going to state that this is how you can indicate. And then if you have an ID number, you fill in the ID number. You also move to a section for institution details. It's important that you give a proper physical address and where the application is situated. And don't give us your personal address. Rather give, if you're at the organization is operating in your physical address, also state that, because it's important so that we don't going to confuse. When we look at your CV, we see that your CV has got an address, the same address as an institution. So you need to state that this institution's, the organization is based on the same place where you live. Then postal address, province. It's important to state the province of where the application or where the implementation is, and also where the organization is situated. And this is where a lot of panels are looking into. If, for example, you are based in Western Cape, but you are interested to do a project in Gauteng, that is also important. But in this case, you state where the organization is. Let's say it's in the Western Cape, you state that it's in the Western Cape by just a click of a button. And then the district, and then you state the district, and then implementation. Is it a local or rural? Sorry, it's a rural or urban and rural. It's important that you separate the two. I think in our next call, you will also see that we will add another feature on peri-urban, and because it's important to state that townships, because we have been advised that we need to also indicate that projects that are happening in townships, they have also a space where we can also do a statistic around. So the physical postal address, if it's the same, you state, and if it's the same postal code, you state. If it's the same town, you also state. Moving to the management details, here it's when it's important, we always advise people to add 2 only, because sometimes when you get to the end of the application and you want to fill it to, you want to move to completing it, and then it will say the application it's got a lot of information. So rather for management details, you add just 2 people that are important, your CEO or finance manager, or project manager, and administrator, so that it stays simple, so that it's not going to complicate your life. And for ID, you also state the IDs, because we've got a verification team that will make sure that we check all this information if it's correct. If it means they call the coordinator and even call the information that has been written here, we're going to do that. And if there's two more, this is the add button you do, and then it will give you another section for you to complete. Then you also state the same way, it's a manager or a finance manager, or yeah. So I will ignore that part, because now it wants me to give a proper ID, but I'm just using this as a dummy. But just ignore this message. But just know that when you give a wrong ID number, it will also state that the ID number should be 13. Let me count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Puling, can we interject and ask questions as you go along?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Can I ask you just to go back to your previous section of institutional? Just go up again. Just go down past representative details there. Institutional. Oh, further up, Puling. Sorry.
Okay.
There. Oh. Okay, under institutional details, where you've got the organization's location and then the project locality. I'm after that section, please, Puling.
You mean this side?
There, yes. What happens if the project implementation locality is in 2 or 3 different areas? So, for example, you could do your project and it could be in both a urban situation, a peri-urban situation, and a peri-rural situation. Does the system allow for you to have those 3 different options, or does the system only allow you to have one option?
If I was not talking that fast, but I stated that with the next call, we're going to have more features. For example, here we have rural, urban and rural. So we also want to have rural and peri-urbans as well. So it's going to have more options, so that you will be able to say rural and peri-urban, or urban and rural, or urban and peri-urban.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
This moment, it's got only 3 options, which is something that we have done with the presidential stimulus funds, that we realize people can do projects in both urban and rural area. But now we've learned with the recent call that we had closed last year, some projects are happening in peri-urban. So we will have that section.
Brilliant. Thanks, Puling.
Right. Okay. And okay, so I'll go to this one, add a person. It will also include another section where you'll have an option whether this is an artistic director, finance officer, management head, or project manager. You will then state what it's the person's role. And also, let me just say one. Okay. Yeah, so you will, it's as simple as that. You add, and then you have 2 or 3 people that you have added, but it's important that you stick to only 2. Then let's go to the employment breakdown. The employment breakdown is about how many people are in the organization. Or it's important that you state that it may not be necessary people that are currently in the organization, but that you implement, that you intend to have in the organization for this particular project. So you will state whether as a part-time or full-time or volunteers. You state the gender. You state the race, whether it's African, colored, Indian, or white. Number of them. You state disabled 1, or if it's none, you write 0. Then you add. Same as when you want to add more numbers, you do part-time. I've done 1 part-time, and then you do for full-time, and you do for volunteers. It's as simple as that. Then you come here to the achievement of the organizations, which is something that we have been challenged in one of the workshops that we've previously had, that some of the awards may not necessarily be recognized by any of us. It may be something that the organization has been recognized by the community. And we've stated that it needs to be stated on the application because it's important. So what you do here, you state the achievements, and I'm just going to just make a dummy, and you state the date and the outcomes of that certificate, whether a flower or a letter. You state that. It's important you mention this because the panel also makes reference to this to check how active are you in the organization. Then we come to the governance structure. Governance structure, of course, it's simple. You write the name, the position of the person, and the ID and the contact details. Make sure that you give us the information of people that when we call, because we've got a verification team that will sit down and go through the application before it even sent out to the panel, to phone the governance structures, board members, or even it's people that are just people that you rely on advisors, we can call them. And then here also is the same. It's for the contact details of a referee. Also give us the information of the person who we will definitely be able to call, because when successfully funded, we will definitely be calling your referees, and for point of reference, and also to verify whether you will be able to manage the funds. Then I go to the second. Okay, I go to the second session, which is the important part for the organization and also for the NAC, the project date. It's when now we see the life of a project, how long it's going to be and what's going to be happening, and can NAC commit to it. I always advise beneficiaries that have a chance to speak to me, they always make sure that you have 3 weeks in allowance for us to give you a contract, because it's pointless to have an outcome on the 30th of March and then your project is starting then. We know that contracting phase takes a little bit of time, and also even approval from having to panel POCCs, council members to go through all the allocations for 7 disciplines. It may not even happen within the specific time or time frames. It's only the last couple of funding session where we actually a little bit met the deadline, but it's out of a rush, and some of the process were compromised. So we don't want to compromise moving further. It's just advising applicants to say, if your project is starting in August and we have outcomes in July, make sure that you give us 2 to 3 weeks for your project to start, so that you're not going to be seen as an organization that is running a project or claiming for funds and use it for retrospectively, because we can't fund or pay project that has already happened. So the closing date, the start date is when the project is going to start, and the end date is when the project is going to end. So it's important that you select here. I think this section is, most people know it, and you state duration, how many months, or 1 year, or 12 months, 6 months. But it's important that applicants stick to 12 months, because lack of a project, NAC only consider it to just only be a year. So it can give you an allowance. When we have a call again, you can apply. But if it happens for more than a year, then the application will definitely not be qualified. Or NAC will then state that we are only prepared to go into contract with you for only 12 months. Then you will have to state in your revised budget how you're going to accommodate the 12 months. Then here the impacts that you have to choose from: creative, economy, educational, recreational, social, or therapeutic. It's important that you choose that, because that's how they can understand the whole nature of the applications, whether it's about creating, it's about being social, it's about therapeutic, or it's about education. And panel really scrutinize each and every application. I don't know, how can I stress this? Officials are just administrators. Panels are the decision makers, are the ones that are clicking yes or no. So it's important that people are aware of that. Describe the benefits of a project in terms of impact selected. It's when you simple summarize your application. For example, I will just write my project storytelling to alleviate, maybe to alleviate. Poverty. Okay.
Pulling, can I just ask you to please, we didn't see the drop down on the question, which of the following will the project's impact on? We can just see a static selection called creative.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the options are again, please?
The options are creative. You can choose whether it's a creative or economic or educational or recreational, social or therapeutic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I heard a feedback, someone screaming. I'm not sure whether is it towards what I'm doing now or...
No, I think it was someone that just joined and they didn't realize their mic was still on.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then here is...
Will I just pop in? Sorry, Pulling. Can I just, while we paused, just ask you regarding that, which of the following will the project's impact on? I found that a problem because often a project will impact on more than one of those areas.
Yeah.
And there isn't an option to choose more than one.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that with the new, because we had like done a survey to tell for certain public members have also criticized the system and one of them was also on the project impact we have to be able to choose more than one indicator, which is what we're going to do in the next funding session. The application will allow you to choose more than one indicator.
Wonderful, thank you.
And then provinces, this is where you state your project, where is it going to be? It's going to be implemented in province of origin, which is where you are stated or where you're situated, or you're going to also move the project to different provinces. A lot of people have been moving, have been implementing projects to different provinces. And I really want to sensitize people not to really be clicking all provinces, because then it gives panel an indication that you may not be able to achieve. But I think with migrating to online, that it's possible that we can do that. So if your project is going to be based online, then you can indicate all of them. But if you are going to be on a physical space, avoid having all provinces, because also considering the budget, we're not going to give you the full amount that you're going to request. So it's important that you choose 3 or 4 provinces. But anyway, at the end of the day, you have a right to choose. It's just my ideas, just to inform you that as a panel, when they look at the application, they also check where the project is going to be situated and where is it going to be implemented, and with the amount of money that they're going to grant you, is it going to really allow you to be implementing to all the provinces. The focus areas, this is quite new. With the new council members, they came with values that we need to align ourselves to, which is a social cohesion and nation building, marginalized and indigenous art, addressing social ills, supporting vulnerable groups, new work and digital art, capacity building and entrepreneurship. So you need to indicate, but it's advisable to choose 2, but if you can choose more than 2, it's still okay. I will just choose 2. Okay, and then here it's when you describe your project. I don't really think I have more. What do you want to do in this project? It's when you explain now, what is the project about? It's where your artistic merits are being assessed here. For example, if you're doing animation, you want to create a new storybook, you want to create a new storyline, or you want to do a Bible, this is where you fly in. And then access to market, you state how you're going to access the market. Are you going to use your social media, or you're going to have a website? You need to state, this is exactly what you have to state on this one, how you're going to reach your audience. It's important that you indicate that. Development and employment of youth. This is also another indicator that is new on our application. There has been an alarm to the NAC that we need to encourage organizations, particularly organizations, to really have programs and contribute to employment of youth, as we know that South Africa has got a high rate of unemployment young people. So it's important that your project has a reasonable number of young people. And it's important that you state and also the gender, sorry, and also where will they be located here. Half of the time people will just state that I'm going to be employing 5 young people, but it's important that why you want to employ them and what background do they come from, because that carries a bit of weight. And then you go back to the application. I'm coming back to application, project sustainability. How do you plan to sustain your project? It's quite an ambitious question, but bear in mind it's important that we have to ask this question. You want to sustain this project, you state how you're going to sustain it. And it's important that you also indicate how you intend to want to sustain it. And there's been a lot of debates around the arts cannot be really sustained due to the current situation that we're in. But I think it's important that you can have a little bit of a plan that you can share with us, how you're looking at sustaining. And this is another question again, which also comes back to the sustainability, how to plan to collaborate or work with other in the sector. This is where paid forward is coming in. There's been talks with previous council members and current council members that arts needs to be talking, artists have to be talking so that we assist each other. NAC has shown that it's overwhelmed in terms of trying to reach out. So it's important that we should encourage conversations. And this is where you will state how you're going to be having collaborations with other local organizations that you're in. If you're an individual, you also state you're going to work with so-and-so, how you're going to work with so-and-so. And
sorry, Pauline, there's a question in the chat for you. What do you mean exactly with sustainability here? Do you refer to financial sustainability?
No, not really. It's financial sustainability. It's also how, what are your plans in terms of keeping the organizations alive, making sure that the community is involved, and hence I said to you, I said in my talk earlier on to say there's been conversations that it's non-ending about can the arts be sustainable, and we have not even had a plan to state that the arts are able to sustain themselves financially. But in this case, if it's non-financial, you can also state that how you're going to sustain yourself non-financially, because there have been organizations that have been sustainable, or really not with funds, but they've been out there and being in the face of the people.
Thank you, Pauline. Fran, you have a question?
Thanks very much. There are 2 questions from the CDI room. I'm going to hand you over to Philippa from Bazart first.
Hi, so my question is
You might need to come close.
to the new partnerships. So are you saying that if you apply as an individual, then you talk about your individual partnerships, but then if you apply as an organization, you've got to talk about organizational partnerships?
Absolutely.
Okay, and are those organizational partnerships based in the arts only, or is it a general NPO?
Advisably is to this is encouraged. This is an encouragement for artists or art sector to speak. So advisably is to do partnerships with your local artist around the area. But there's a need why you have to collaborate with a non-artist, non-art organization. You can state there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great, thanks very much, Puling. And just a question from me, in the new version of the application form, will you indicate the word count before we populate with words? Because some of us like to prepare offline on a Word document and then drop into the application form. So will you indicate word count?
Word count, okay, all right. Okay, thank you. I will just state as a recommendation but to praxis, to state that you guys would prefer that.
That'll be great, because in some other sections of the form you do indicate word count, and also am I right in saying it's words plus spaces?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. And I think that's one of the things that were also indicated on. It's just that I can't remember what was really recommended by the public when we did a survey, but word count is also important as well.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I've got another question here. Yes, from Victor from the CDI room.
Okay.
Hi, Puling.
Hello.
My name is Victor Steyn. You spell Steyn S-T-E-Y-N. It's the historical Boer surname from the Free State. This might sound like a mundane question, but it is relevant to South Africa's demographics. I have experience in the past since I was at university. When they see the surname Steyn, they assume it's a white person, a Caucasian person, and I get discriminated against under apartheid. I was, of course, a political activist, a serious one. But the point is, do I send a photo of myself with my ID number?
No.
This is South Africa, and I'm not being frivolous. This is South Africa, and it does. We are in a situation where there is still a lot of subliminal ethnic, racial discrimination, even myself, let me say so, as a political activist. What do I do?
In this case, you'd rather state within the project description to state the discrimination you've experienced, but a photo wouldn't really be necessary because your artistic merit are the one are going to send you to the panel. To be honest, I've never come across in our sessions that applicants were discriminated against their own ethnicity or their race. Everything has been boiled down to artistic merits, and hence we needed to have this capacity building so that people can write very good proposals and also comply, because it's been one of the reasons why we've been rejecting, and not because of the race at all.
And also, if I can add, Puling, I might be wrong, but if I'm right in saying under the employee section, you do indicate race of each employee. Am I not correct there?
Absolutely, you have to. Even when you do that grouping, you state how many white, how many black.
Correct. So, Victor, you would give a chance for demographic breakdown to be recorded with your application via that section of the NAC form. Okay, I think that's clarified it, Puling. I'm getting a lot of nodding heads from the CDI room. Thanks, Puling.
Okay, we come into the direct beneficiaries here. It's where you state people that are going to be directly involved in the project. There's been questions where people are asking direct and indirect beneficiaries. What do we mean by that? Direct beneficiaries, it's you, for example, that is going to be writing the application and also be part of the administrative, and there's going to be a financial gain to it. This is where you fill it in. Indirect, it's when now you have, let me just finish the slide. You can move to the section, yeah. Indirect is when you now state the people that are going to benefit from the project, but not necessarily involved in the project. For example, if you're running a workshop catering, they are not directly involved in the project, but they will be giving you a particular service. So you'll also count them in. So it's important that you you indicate that, because that section we had previously removed, but we are bringing it back because it's part of the important statistics for Department of Arts and Culture to use. How if there is a value added in terms of having the projects happening in a physical spaces where you invite other people, or people are benefiting as project managers or as doing something in the project, or even giving you a service. Now we come to the project plan. This is where you state list of main objectives. You state this project is going to be running workshops, for example. Date here, and you state which month and date, today's date, and date, and you state which place is going to be. And you add, and until you are happy with how many activities are going to be involved in the project, and stick to making sure that your project will happen within 12 months if it's going to go longer. But if 6 months, it's really a go ahead for us. Most of the time it's like we get happy with projects that are running less than 6 months and less than 12 months, because then we're able to account easy and finish on time. Then for the next call, you're able to apply. And the core team, you state here how many core members that are there on your core team: project manager, administrator, financial manager. You state the details. We also have a verification team that will also call them to verify. And I think those who have benefited from PSP, they will also attest to that, officials do call, and panel do call, and even council members do call, just to verify if the information is correct. Then we can move to the second section, the important section, which is the budget section. This is a make it or break it all the time. We have a criteria set, amount less is 50,000. You can't go less than 50,000. We have the highest threshold, which is 350. You can't have projects that are costing more than 350. Automatically, if a project is going to cost less than 50,000, it will be automatically disqualified. If it's going to cost more than 350, it will automatically be disqualified. So it's important that you list your project and state how much the project is going to cost. And sometimes this is the section we use, how much you need from the NAC. The project cost, it may cost you 500,000, but maybe out of 500,000, you need 250 or 350. Then you indicate, you list all the information you need, and at the end you do a sum, then it will give us the amount. But if it's higher than that, unfortunately, the system won't kick you out. It will go through, but know very well that it will definitely be disqualified because it doesn't meet the funding criteria set in terms of the amount, which can be within the required amount within the panel as well. And then you list here source of income from other funders, whether it's BASA, DAC. If there's nothing, you also state that you haven't approached any funders, and then a list of any funding you have received. It's important that if you don't remember, state that you don't remember, but state the year, at least state the year or funding number. But the office will definitely do a verification. But just the system on its own, we are upgrading it. But just having your ID will know how many times you've received funding, whether as an individual or as an organization. And also, even with organization, just the registration number will definitely be able to pick it up. So it's important that you write the information. If you don't know it, leave it blank, because you don't have to complicate your life. Details of the funding which has been confirmed or unconfirmed. If there is organizations that have confirmed funding, please note that you have to state correct information. It doesn't mean that NAC will disqualify your application. It just simply means that if it's an ambitious application, it actually gives us comfort that you can be able to implement, because other funders are have confirmed funding. But if you don't have any confirmation, don't state them. But unfortunately, we've had organizations and individuals that will say, I have not confirmed. And then when we share information with other institutions, we realize that you applied at National Film Foundation for a similar project and for the same project content. And that's double dipping. And unfortunately, application gets to be disqualified, and you will be disqualified for something that is not really necessary. So it's important that you state the information correctly and accurately. I think my section here will end. I would really wish we can have more session where we can ask questions as much as we can, because the next section is uploads, and I don't want to spoil the section for Fran, because Fran is going to go through detail session when we need a certified copy of the ID, valid tax clearance, quotations, curriculum vitae, proof of bank. It's important that you going to sit for that session. I don't know if I can end here, or can I have questions now?
So, Puling, thanks very much. We've got a question from Kululekile in the CDI room. Thank you. Back onto budget.
Hello, Miss.
Hello.
Kulekile here from Development Africa Strategy. I applied last year, and my budget was 340,000. But I was not approved. But upon looking at those that were approved, I stand corrected here, but it seemed like everyone was given 250,000.
250?
Yes. Those that were approved. When I saw the list of those that were approved.
Was it under what discipline? Because discipline, they varied in terms of how they allocate.
But I didn't check what disciplines, but when I saw the list of those that were approved, and I saw how much they were given, 250,000.
Okay, it could have been, because usually when panel members sit, they look at the amount of application forms, and they will discuss application by application, because the application is to get a deserving attention. And they will see that, for example, most of the discipline had 2.5 million to allocate for all the applications that we have received. And then panel will then say, we can't go beyond 350 because the amount is less. Let's stick to 250 or 70,000 for the scores, those who have scored higher, or those we see that the project can be well implemented. So if it's 250, it could have been due to the funds that were available. They couldn't go to 350. They only stick to 250. And I can tell you now, those applications were very less. It was not even more than 15 or 10, because the highest that gave applications, it was literature, and most of the amount was 70, 40, yes, 70, 80, and 100. So it wasn't a lot of applications that were given like that amount of money. So if it's theater might have gone for less, but a reasonable amount.
Okay, thank you, Miss.
Thanks, Puling. That's all from our side.
Any more questions?
Puling, I've got another question coming in around whether or not you've got dates yet for the new applications, new application windows.
Okay, not as yet. I don't want to spill the beans now.
Okay.
I'd rather wait, because we are going to have, like I explained since Friday, that we're going to have series of funding calls. So we're still waiting for council to give us a go ahead. When are we signing the memorandum of understanding, and when are we starting with the calls? So I would say just look out on the websites from beginning of July or beginning of June, somewhere there we will have calls available for projects, and then later on we'll have for bursaries.
Thank you.
Can I just, I don't know if Pamela's still here, but I just put a note in the chat and I'm not sure if she's seen it. She's saying that she's run out of data, but she needs to actually give us her service provider. We can't buy data for her until she does that.
Okay.
Edo's had his hand up. Do you have a question, Edo?
Hello.
Hello, yes.
I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, ask.
Hello.
Yes, you can ask.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
I just wanted to ask when the application does start, when we do start with the application process, how long is the application open for, or how long do you have, what time frame do you have to apply?
Okay, we always open a call, for example, people where they can go online and submit the application for 6 weeks, depending when we called. So
okay.
let's say on the 25th, it's when we advertise that we are calling for new applications. You count 6 weeks from that day.
Oh, okay. So basically, you guys will announce when the applications are going to be arriving.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
6 weeks from the day you knew about the application. So it's important that you go to the website, because the website will say the closing date and the outcomes.
Oh, okay. And then the second question I just have quickly, sorry to waste everybody's time. I wanted to ask, in like organizational standpoint of view and from an artistic point of view, does the amount of people you have in maybe a project you want to do affect your chances of being funded?
No.
Let's say maybe your project wanted to feature 4 people, as to say maybe somebody who had a project that wanted to feature 2 or 3 people. Does that affect how the panel reads your application?
No, the only time when the application gets affected is when you do capacity building. Capacity building is when you run workshops. It's advisable that your number, depending on the funding that is available, you keep it to 10 or 20. You can't go beyond that. The minute you start talking about 100 or you talk about 50, then that's when panel will start now looking at application. The fact that they cannot meet your requirements, not that it's not good enough.
Because I'm thinking I'd probably have like way less people, like probably less than 10. So I was wondering, does that affect how they look at you as a panel, or does that give you like less chance of getting like selected as to opposed to maybe somebody comes with 20 people, you know?
Yeah. No, number of people that are involved in your project, great.
Yeah.
If you have more. Because some you will have volunteers that are assisting, but it's important that, make sure that you give people something,
Great. Yeah. Okay. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Puleng, I'm wondering if we can invite people in rooms or people online to ask any general questions they may have about the NAC application system.
Yeah, we can.
Mandisi has their hand up. Mandisi, go ahead.
Hello, Puleng. How long does it take for the NAC to reply for the callback? Let's say, for instance, if your application was selected, or if your application was rejected, how long does it take for them to reply to you? Because you were saying in one of the things that you were saying is that if your application exceeds the maximum amount that the call has been put out, then that application is automatically being disqualified. So how long does the NAC take to reply to the calls for the applications?
a very good question, and I'm not going to lie to you to give you a specific time, whether we are replying 48 hours after we've made a decision, or we reply in 2 hours or 3 hours or 2 days or 3 days. The problem has always been we have a number of approvals, which is from panel, council, and also there's a verification team as well to verify the information. That takes a bit of time. And if you can check the website, the time when we were advertising, we needed to contract, and immediately those who were unsuccessful needed to get the letters. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Only contracting was able to be completed before we closed for the 24th December. But the declined letters needed to be verified by the verification team. And due to holidays, it took a bit of time. People came a bit later because we closed late. So it took longer for applicants to know where they stand, and hence appeals process also it's going to also take a little bit longer. And we're going to have a call, and while people are still waiting for the appeals response. So I'm not going to really lie to you. The only thing is rather have an official that you can always be writing to, because that person has got the response of your application, whether it's been declined or whether it's been approved, and how far the status. So it's important that you write to info and copy the official responsible for your project. So all the disciplines, they've got an official dedicated to managing the project.
Pulling, we missed you for a second there here in the CDI room. Did you say there was a dedicated official that applicants could, an NAC official that applicants could communicate with? Sorry, we missed you there.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was saying each and every discipline has got an official that is responsible. So that official is the one who can give you the outcomes of an application which is declined or whether it's approved. So if it's declined and the official is still waiting for the verification team to complete, he will have to tell you that I'm still waiting for the response from the verification team to give you the outcomes of the letter of your application, why it has been declined. But one way or another, so we need to be giving you reasons whether it's declined or giving you an approval. So you should get a communication. But the question was that how long does it take? And that's an answer that I was not able to give clarity on, because I was saying there's a number of process that are in between that delays us to really meet the deadlines. And we had a call last year, and the deadline, we needed to advertise on the 5th, and yet we met the deadline to advertise the first lot on the 5th, and we needed to immediately contract. But those who were declined did not get their letters. They needed to wait until we closed to get their letters. So that's been a challenge, and we're trying to fix that. And we're trying to also add capacity in terms of verification team to make sure that speed is enough. Hello.
Hello, we've got a question here in the ASSITEJ room. Do you want to come and ask it? Lukanya?
Hello, Puleng.
Hello.
I wanted to ask if you apply as an individual, how long does it take, and what sort of documents do you require from a person applying as an individual to the NAC? Thank you.
Thank you. The process of the outcomes, it applies both for individuals and organizations. I promising you that we're going to take out the outcomes of the 30th. It's definitely going to be the 30th for both the individuals and the organizations. And the requirements, I don't want to spoil the presentation for Fran. Fran is going to talk about the requirements of individuals, because definitely they're not the same as organizations. So it's important that you're going to sit through to go through the presentation with Fran. I don't know if Fran, I'm helping.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if there's no other questions, we can slide seamlessly into discussing about uploads and compliance. Is there any other questions from anyone else? Hang on a second. I've got another comment coming from the CDI room.
Puleng,
Hello, hello.
me, I was very concerned because the application was, the closing date was on the 5th of December last year, right?
No, the outcomes were the 5th.
Yeah, okay, cool. But I only received communication in February. Even then, I had to chase the NAC.
Yeah. No, it was for a decline, right?
Yeah, it was for a decline.
Hence, I explained that the decline became an issue simply because officials have to wait for the verification team to go through the reasons of declining, whether it's been declined by panel or it's declined internally, which is the office. Usually the office will decline an application based on compliance. And if a panel would decline on various reasons, and those reasons have to be verified, and it's going through the audio and also looking at the reviews of each and every panel member, and to make sure that when we communicate with you, we give you the right information. So my apologies, honestly, because that has been an issue, and hence we have a lot of appeals, and we are worried that the appeals will take longer to a point where we're going to have a call again. And once you have appealed, the chances of you applying are really slim. You would have to withdraw your appeal, then you can submit your application, because when we adjudicate, we're going to check with the appeals committee whether your name is there, and then we will give it to them, and then they also take a bit of time because there's a number of them. So my apologies for that delay, and we're hoping we're going to really fast track this time, because we're going to have series of number of calls that are coming through.
Once again, thank you, Puleng.
Thanks, Puleng. I can see
we've got 3 questions, yeah, from Ntandazo is first. Can you ask your question, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Puleng. Thank you. Puleng, I just wanted to find out when we are registering the project, or choosing the discipline, do you have anything, for instance, like if I say visual arts and then I will select maybe script writing or film? So I just wanted to find out about that. And then secondly, I just wanted to find out, I'm not sure that you're involved in the PSP, so I don't want you to take you back to PSP project, but you are not involved. But can you answer that question? If you're involved at a later stage, I'll ask a question. Thank you.
Please ask the question. If I can answer, I can answer, but
Okay. No, during PSP, ma'am, I received an SMS that is saying that you are coming for a visit. The NAC will come for site visit. And up to now, they never came, up to today. So I've been doing follow-up around those issues, and I'm not getting a clear answer. Some, they say that, no, we will come, but the COVID, but
yeah.
I don't have a direction up to now. Thank you.
Okay. In terms of project visit for, I don't know if you've been following the NAC being on media many times. The investigation somehow, I think it's issues of transparency. That's the reason why I'm talking like this. The investigation somehow compromised the process to run smoothly. So if you have not been visited, it doesn't mean that your project fell off. It's just maybe some of the processes needed to be on hold until further notice. But the project manager, who's Rosie Katz, is still the project manager. So you can always write to her to state when are they going to do a project visit. But sometimes in this case, we run out of money. So we were not able to use money to even travel to other projects. So online could be an option for you and Rosie Katz, but you're more than welcome to write to her to find out if the site visit is still. And your first question was around, I didn't write it correctly. Can you repeat that?
The first question was about the script writing.
Oh, yes.
The script writing and the film.
Yeah.
As NEC, is it something that you are part of, or it's not in line with your competence? It's NFVF competency. And if it's not, maybe further, because you've mentioned the upcoming application, is there any synergy in the near future of collaboration, or you treat these organizations as two separate entities? Thank you.
When you are going to run a project that is more than one discipline or more than one activities or cross disciplines, we have a discipline where you can choose multidisciplinary. But script writing falls under us. We do support script writing for both literature and also theatre as well. Synergies, we are currently having quite a number of conversations, because if you can follow the white paper, we're going to be merging. So there's conversation that entities are going to be merging. So as to when, I honestly wouldn't know, because we're still waiting for proper announcement, how the merging is going to occur and when it's going to occur. So synergies is definitely something that we are trying to have as outside and inside. But for the sake of stakeholder engagement, we are definitely doing that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And then the last question is Mandisi, and then we'll move on to the last part of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Since we have you here, Puleng, and also we're just a little bit frustrated about how the process, how you're explaining it, also like the late response that we got in February, which we were busy visiting the National Arts Council portal just to see how the process is going for our application. Regarding us being rejected now, as someone who's already who could advise us on the people who are rejected, on what approach could we take moving forward with what we have now, going back to the NAC and say, going back to the NAC with the same project, but if it's possible, because things change right now, because it will be possible that we'll have to go back to the proposal and just shift things, because as we're going, other things are coming in on board. And as we want, since we're already here, also we are aiming to go back to the National Arts Council and ask again for the funding, because as some of the creators, we feel like we can get the opportunity to get funding from the NEC. So I would like an advice, basically, as the people who were rejected, on how they can move forward towards the application for the next cycle that is coming.
Yeah, look, you need to make us work. We are officials responsible for a reason. If you were applying under individual or organizations, and for a theatre or craft, an official responsible for that discipline is the one who needs to talk to you in detail as to what really happened to your application. If it's due to budgetary constraint, unfortunately, you can still bring your application back, and the official will have to then list it as one of the applications that were declined based on budgetary constraint. Then panel can give it priority, because that's sometimes when applicants are declined on budgetary constraint, it's beyond control. You have no control. Panel doesn't have a control. It's what is available at the kitty. So it's also about making sure that everyone gets a fair chance. So it's important that an official, you write to an official responsible for your project, and it's always on the website. All our names are there, all our emails are there, all our cell phones are there, and we have to respond to that. But we always encourage people, copy to info, because some of the information, the person who's responsible at the reception can answer them, because we all have access to the line. I can say, please keep trying, because NAC is also trying to get more funds for giving enough funds to applicants and to fund reasonably. It's nice. It's not nice to always give decline letters. It's really not nice. And the reason why we're sitting here with this capacity building is because we're trying to also resolve one problem that we have seen for over the years that of declining, which is writing of very good proposals, and also complying. Those were really critical for us. That's why we're running this. So hopefully when we have more calls, we'll see an improvement around that. And then the decline reasons will be much more different, and also funds from Treasury as we're trying to knock at the doors of Treasury to give us more money.
Okay, thank you, Puling. If there's no other questions, I'd like to move us on to the compliance section, which talks to the Section 5 uploads of the grant management system, the application form. So it's quite important to note, and I think Puling alluded to this earlier, that applications can sometimes get rejected at the very, very first level of assessment. So if your compliance documentation, for example, is wrong, or it's problematic, then you'll get rejected right at that particular level, which is such a waste of energy and such a waste of time and such a waste of resources. So it's really, really, really worth getting your compliance documentation absolutely right at the very beginning, so that what you ensure is that your application has a chance then of going through to the second stage where it is assessed by a panel. So you don't want to be tossed out right at the very beginning because you are not tax compliant, for example, or you've got an invalid ID number, for example. So this presentation has also got to say that compliance documentation relates to most other applications that you'll do. So it's worth just getting it right all the way through all your applications. So in the uploads page, the fifth tab of the NAC application form, you can upload various file types. I must say I've only ever used docx, Excel, and PowerPoint. I haven't used any of the other options, but the most important thing to say is that your maximum file size on a document is 10 megabytes. And the system, the GMS system, will automatically kick it out if it's too large. So it's well worth your while just checking the size of your document. And I also think it's quite worth your while having a printout of the required compliance documentation offline so that you can collect all your documentation and give yourself a checklist offline, so by the time you come to upload, you've got everything ready. If an upload is mandatory, and you'll always see the mandatory indicator is a red star on the NAC application form. But for some reason, if it doesn't apply to you, then what you need to do is upload a scan of a signed and dated letter stating it does not apply, and apply the reason. So this we call a non-applicable letter. So a non-applicable letter would be, for example, it doesn't usually happen, but I'm giving a random example, that if you are asked for a company registration document and you're applying as an individual, you wouldn't apply that, because you can't have a company registration certificate if you're an individual. So then you would just upload a non-applicable letter. It's non-applicable because I'm applying as an individual and not as a company. Puling, I can't think of any other good example. Can you maybe help me with a good example there of a non-applicable letter?
For example, if a person is applying for capacity build, is an individual, and they have, as the section for capacity building is there, they can write a non-applicable letter. At first, we used to have also script writing for all the applications, and for visual artists, they will state a non-applicable letter on the section for script writing. So it depends on application.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Puleng. That's a much better example than I gave. Thank you. The other really important thing is that all the documents that you scan and you upload have got to be really, really clear. They've got to be very legible. And I'm going to show you two fantastic examples of what not clear looks like. Because what you don't want is you don't want your NAC verification team to be struggling in any way. They mustn't have to turn the document upside down and turn it inside out and get the magnifying glass out. And you know, if it's in Portuguese, they then have to go and translate it into English. You must make the life of your NAC verification team easy. So make your uploads very, very clear. Okay, so for individuals, these are your required uploads. A certified copy of your South African ID. Obviously, if you are a person who's got maybe an ID that's been lost and it's in the process of being reissued, you should upload your temporary ID. And maybe I would upload a letter explaining that your application is in the process. And usually you can get a police certificate to verify that. Your certification should not be more than 3 months old. So don't upload an ID that was certified last year in October. It's not going to work. So, and it's standard practice. All certifications are not acceptable for any document if they are older than 3 months old. You then need a valid tax clearance certificate, and individuals can get their own PAYE certificates or own tax clearance. You can get that. I'm going to talk more about tax clearance certificates later under the organizational section. And then quotations where applicable. So for example, Ayanda, who's sitting in the CDI room, is a musician, and it may just be so that her next application to the National Arts Council requires some recording for her work to be made. And so she would then need to put in 3 quotations from a recording studio to verify that. So those quotations would then accompany the final amount that she puts into her budget. All right, so quotations were applicable. Curriculum vitae for the coordinator, that in the case of an individual would be yourself. A proof of bank account. Now, banks can differ in how they give these to you. Some of them allow you to draw down a proof of bank account off the website, off your own internet banking profile, and other banks, you actually have to get hold of your relationship manager, and they can do that for you. But essentially, the NAC needs to know you've got a live, ready, legal bank account that they can track. All right. And then examples of previous works in the forms of photographs, brochures, and other printed materials. I'd advise people to be selective. Be selective in showing photographs of your work that would provide context. So, and provide background to that context. Provide images that show your track record. So in the case of ASSITEJ, for example, if there were individual performers within the ASSITEJ family that were applying for their own productions, then they may ask ASSITEJ for some photographs that they've taken of audiences that have been at the individual performers' performances in the past. So photographs are good to show context that you've done it before, context that you've got a track record, and context that your project really is real, that it's going to it's going to actually happen and that you've got the capacity to make it happen. The detailed budget, we did that quite well on Friday with Miriam. So just remember that whilst you do the budget tab, which is tab 4 on the NAC application form, you're also required to upload an Excel spreadsheet of your budget, okay? Or it doesn't have to be an Excel spreadsheet. If you want, you can do it on a Word document and then just PDF it. But it's, say, or you can PowerPoint it, you can PowerPoint your budget, but that budget would almost give a greater detail breakdown than your highlighted line items in the section 4 of the application form. We also find the detailed budget, especially if you're working on Excel, really useful because as Miriam said on Friday, you can do different budget scenarios to know what would you do, how would you do this project if you only got 50,000 instead of 250,000. And also you would have internal notes in your detailed budget. Some of them would be useful to the NAC just from a transparency point of view, but most of all, they would be useful for your internal workings. Yeah, you okay? And then the detailed, the recent reference letters from other arts organizations, artists and community leaders, no later than 18 months, no older than 18 months. And again, what you're asking people to do for you is you're asking them to write about your credibility as an individual artist. Maybe, for example, a church leader who has heard you sing in the church and knows that you are a credible musician. Sorry, I'm staring at Ayanda because she's in the CDI room. Okay. And we've also got Diana, who is a creative artist here. Then you would want to get reference letters from other creative artists that perhaps you've exhibited with, who can attest to the fact that they've seen your craft at a market or they've seen your craft being exhibited in a store. So those reference letters are really important because they allow the NAC to have independent valuations on your work. And then capacity building projects only, that would need, those compliance documents would include training manuals, facilitator CVs, and a list of participants. Sometimes, Puleng, and I'd like you to weigh in on this conversation, sometimes the list of participants is hard to achieve because sometimes in your project, you're going to call for participants. I know certainly with the CDI projects, we can never give a list of participants because we only call for participants once we know we've got the funding. So then again, you would upload a non-applicable letter and you would explain why, in the case of capacity building for an individual, why you are not doing that because you're not doing capacity building, or in our case, why we can't give a participants list because we haven't yet advertised the project. So that's on the individuals and their required documents. I'm going to pause for a second to see if anybody who would do individual applications want to ask any questions at this point.
Yeah. With reference to tax clearance, in my experience, of course, that's applicable to business entities, legal entities. Would you do it as an individual?
Okay, so just to repeat myself, when you are an individual and you're asked to give a tax clearance certificate, you can get a certificate of good standing from SARS, and they would have then looked at your PAYE records. So it's a certificate of good standing for an individual. Okay. Moving on. So under organizations, the required documents for organizations, this is where it starts to get a little bit more detailed for organizations. The first request is for a certified copy of ID for at least 2 office bearers of the organization. Now, what we have found in the past is that If you line up the office bearers of the organization with the contact people in your application form, then it syncs much better. So for example, the one ID we always upload will be for our CEO, because she's the person who's going to sign the contract with NAC. So you want to line up your office bearers with your people in your form. And again, I remind you that certifications need to have happened within the last 3 months. A valid tax clearance certificate for the organization. Now, this is really, really tricky, and this is the biggest red flag of all the red flags, because tax clearance certificates for organizations can change at the drop of a hat. You can be completely tax cleared and verified and applicable and all the rest, and then all of a sudden, within a space of an hour, you can suddenly be non-tax cleared. And this happened to the CDI very recently. In fact, it happened when we were signing our contract for these workshops, where we sent our most recent tax clearance certificate, and NAC very kindly came back and said, oh, sorry, CDI, you are not verified. And the reason we were not verified, we were able to check it really quickly, is because there was a payment between that coming into the organization and that going out of the organization. And in that window of that moving between the CDI and SARS, we were deemed to be non-compliant. So then when the NAC went to check us, they came back and said, you're non-compliant. Sure. It is that quick. So what I'm saying is that my advice would be upload your most recent tax clearance certificate literally as the last upload before you hit submit. Okay.
Right, what about submitting your tax PIN number, which is the latest?
So the tax PIN number, thanks for that question, Victor. The NAC asks for a tax verification certificate, and Pauline, correct me if I'm wrong, you will get on your tax verification certificate, it's a letter of good standing, you will get your PIN, your tax PIN reflected, but what the NAC actually wants to see is verification that you're non-compliant. So there are 2 different certificates you can get from SARS. You can get a tax PIN certificate, and you can get a tax verification certificate. And my understanding, and please confirm this, Pauline, is that it's the verification certificate that we're after. Is that right, Pauline?
That's correct, Fran.
Thank you very much. Thanks. And then again, quotations, if you need any equipment or things that you've got to purchase, bigger things, bigger items for your projects, then you need to put in quotations. And if they're not applicable, then say so. The curriculum vitae of the 2 office bearers most usually line up with the IDs that you've loaded in the first upload. So it's really good to keep it simple. So if your CEO is the relevant contact person who's going to sign the contract, then upload the CEO's ID and upload the CEO's curriculum vitae. Proof of bank account, again, as I've explained, these come in different forms. In the case of organizations who have usually got business bank accounts with the banks, you've usually got an online banking profile, and you can usually download your proof of banking very, very quickly through your online banking detail. Your latest financial statement, that's your very latest one. And remember that different financial years, organizations have different financial years. So in the case of the CDI, for example, our financial year ends with most government financial years, which is the end of March. We begin our new financial year at the beginning of April. So if, for example, the National Arts Council put out a call now in June, July for applications, we would not be able, we would have to submit our financial statement from March 2021, because that's the one that is our most recent signed financials, whereas March 2022, the auditors are beginning to work on. All right, so you submit, you upload your most recent, which will always fall in line with your financial year end. And it has to be signed by auditors, so you can't upload a draft, for example. Again, upload previous works in the forms of photographs, brochures, and other printed materials. Quite a few organizations will have their annual reports, which are quite useful for showing track record. But also it's quite useful to upload photographs or brochures that are distinctly related to the project that you ask money for. So, for example, last year for the National Lotteries application, the CDI was applying for money for product development for craft products. And so we uploaded a portfolio demonstrating how various products had been developed via a series of interventions that we'd done. So it spoke directly to the actual project that you're requesting funding for. And then again, detailed budget. So you upload either your Excel spreadsheet or your Word document with a table or your PowerPoint of a detailed budget. And then capacity building projects, they have their compliance documents such as training materials, facilitators, CVs, and list of participants. So in our case, when we've done capacity building projects, we've been able to upload our training manuals, we've been able to upload the CVs of our facilitators, but we are never able to upload a list of participants. So we upload a non-applicable well, technically it's not non-applicable, it's just that we can't do it in relation to the fact that we haven't got the project confirmed yet with funding. But I think the most important thing is that the NAC sees that you've applied your mind. So even if it's non-applicable, apply your mind and say, I've noted it, I've seen what you've asked me for, I can't give it to you, and this is the reason. So it's just a really professional approach to your compliance documentation. And again, it's making the life of the NAC officials easy. And that's what we really want to do, because if their lives are easier, they can do their jobs and they can probably give us more money. So you will not be able to see this tax compliance status. It's the tax compliance status verification certificate for the CDI. So this is not the PIN notification, it's the tax compliance verification. You might not be able to see that very clearly, so it's a very good example of what not to scan. All right, so I just put it here as an example, but if it's coming across fuzzy in your screen and unclear, then it means that it's going to come across fuzzy as an upload, and it means that your NAC official is not going to be able to work with the document. But that's essentially the tax compliance status. It's the verification certificate to upload. And you can see in the top right-hand corner, it says tax compliance status verification.
It's not clear, fuzzy, then how do you must submit?
No, but Victor, when you get it from SARS, it'll be very clear, and then you scan it, you scan the clear version and upload that. But I'm saying if in scanning it, it becomes fuzzy, then you have to make another plan. Okay. All right. And then again, another fuzzy document, but it's an example of what the The certificate of registration is for all companies. It's your core 39. And again, that would need to be certified and dated. So companies will have to upload your core 39 registration certificate. And on your core 39, you will have your registration number. And remember that your registration number in the institutional tab, tab 1 of the application form, has got to line up with this document, with the registration number on this document. So compliance documentation, you just have to be super, super anal. Just super careful, super diligent, and really just give yourself a good checklist. And that's really all from my side. Is there anybody who wants to ask questions about compliance documents? We've got a question here about quotations. Yeah.
So what falls under quotations? Is it machinery, that's the word, and like stuff like that, or would it be, let's say, artist time, or yeah?
Okay, so quotations would most likely be things that you've got to buy, and also just know that the NAC has got good guidelines around what they will fund and what they won't fund. So, for example, and Pauline can confirm this, they're not likely to fund a Toyota Hilux to go and do your rural workshops in. Okay, so they're not likely to try to fund a motor car. But they would, for example, maybe fund a flip chart that is needed in a capacity building venue. So you might get a series of quotes for flip charts. You might also get a series of quotes for any bulk printing that you need to do. So, for example, if you are distributing brochures or books, or like Vets, ASSITEJ did the little booklets that went to the National Arts Festival, they would have had to get quotations from printers for that. Does that answer your question?
And rentals?
And rentals, no. Rental is part of in your budget, and it's not. Are you talking, say, for example, if you'd have to hire a venue to do? Yeah. It's unlikely you would need quotations for that, because you'd probably know the best venues to hire. Yeah. All right, I can see Ntandazo has got a question. Yeah.
Thank you, friend. I just wanted to find out, friend, because I've seen your company document was certified. Is it a must? Because it's something that you download. If you take it to the to the commissioner, and then they can't see the difference between the original and the copy. So how do you handle that? Is it a must in terms of certifying the document?
Is that on the core, the registration one?
Yes. No, I saw one of your document, the company document. It seems as if they were certified. So I just wanted to find out: is it a must in your last presentation? Now, is it a must?
So with the National Arts Council, the copy of the organization's registration certificate must be certified. Yes, it must be certified. So you would take it to your police station, your local police station, with your original. I think my understanding is that we received our originals in the post, and we take our originals with the copies to the Commissioner of Oaths.
No, the original, ma'am, it's document that you can just download it. It does. There's no difference. If you take him to the Commission of Oath, they can't even see the difference.
Okay, well, that part I can't answer to.
Okay. I hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Pauline can answer. Maybe Pauline can answer if she's still around.
No, I'm still around, and I think the answer is still going to be the same. We really want the document to be certified. we've never had issues of until 2020 when we had COVID, where people couldn't go to police stations, but otherwise we get certified documents, even from the printed ones.
Okay, and Philippa in the CDI just wants to weigh in on this.
So if you're downloading your document online, you need to print a color copy and then a black and white copy, and then at the police station they'll take the color copy as the original and the black and white as the one they will certify.
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that in case you didn't hear. Thanks very much, Philippa. I've learned something today. Apparently, you can download a color copy of your registration certificate, and you print your color copy, and that stands as the original. Then you print a black and white copy, and that stands as the copy. And you take those two to the police station or your commissioner of oaths, and the color copy is the original, and then they stamp and certify the black and white copy. Thanks, Philippa. I didn't know that. Thank you. Any other questions? Ntandazlo, does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank
you very much. Anyone else? I can see a hand up. I think it's from Jisreel.
Yeah, once again, I just would like to say also thank you for the insightful session, and I would like to ask how is the National Art Council? Because I see Mohammed from Beaufort West in the Karoo in the group. So how is the National Art Council gonna bridge that gap to make sure that the rural areas are more informed? And then I also want to suggest make use of me and Muhammad, because Muhammad is quite an artist that moves around. Me, I'm also an artist, and I'm also representing an organization. Hence, I asked earlier about partnerships beyond funding with the National Art Council, because it will really boost us as artists, as arts organizations. And we would also, in the same breath, would like to bridge that gap to make sure more young people in rural areas are aware and they are involved in these type of opportunities. So yeah, thank you from my side.
Thanks, Jisreel, for your question. I know that Puling answered earlier on. She did address the issue earlier on about targeting rural areas. And I know that Puling did speak about the National Arts Council being aware of areas that they've got to address. Puling, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
I can't add much more, but I'm sorry, I've moved from my office to another office. Sorry about the background.
Yeah.
Because of the network. The reason why we want to now have a special attention to rural is because there's been a cry out from artists that are based in the rural areas to say we've been disadvantaged most of the time. And if you can remember what I said about rural also equals to disadvantaged provinces, which is provinces that have not been funded well in the previous years of me being existing in the NAC. So rural projects that are happening in the rural areas will definitely be getting a particular percentage. Hence, I was saying we're going to do 60-40%, which is 60 going to the rural areas and 40% going to other areas of funding.
Great. Thanks very much, Puling. Jisreel, is your question been answered? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know if I maybe must ask again in terms of information, also in information sharing. Now with the budget side of things, I'm covered. But now my challenge is not a lot of artists get to hear about the opportunity. So maybe if me and Mohammed and whoever that is available to assist to bridge that gap in terms of information sharing, maybe the National Art Council can share the information with us, because I'm also on the local radio station. I'm on various arts boards. So if we can share and workshop the artists of the rural areas, so when the call come, even beyond this call, they can be aware there is support for artists, because a lot of artists, they're struggling, they don't even know there's these type of support structures and support systems that are there. So yeah.
I think that's a fantastic idea, Jazreel. And you know, if you've got the incredible network that you've got, if you just keep your eye out on the National Arts Council website, you'll be alerted to when opportunities exist, and then you can share that amongst your community. I think that's the most useful, proactive starting point. If you've got that leverage, then please do that. I'm sure Puleng would concur with that suggestion.
And also,
Yes.
you can share the information of the two gentlemen that were stating that they can assist. We can then share in detail the information that they need to populate around their areas.
Yes, Jazreel is talking about me. I am Mr. Muhammad Plaikis. So yes, we are almost arts practitioners. So I would like to ask, how can we work together? Because I think in the NAC didn't just make this for the workshop to go on. It's also for us to connect as arts practitioners and businesses. So how?
Puleng, I'm going to leave you to respond to that.
Really, it's very unfair.
Sorry.
But it's fine. You know, it's. I think how I'm understanding the suggestion here is that there's a need for more communication. There's a need for more partnership, and I think this is something that I can discuss it with the office, how we can have more conversations and partnerships with the two of you, because it looks like all these partnerships with provinces, and we have partners already that we've identified in provinces. So that's the beginning of our conversation. Hence, this is not the end of our workshops. We're still going to have series of them. So, but I think in this case, you are not satisfied. You want more. I can only say I can notify, and I think Stembis is also here as one of the officials from NAC. We can then state one of the concerns and also the recommendation and see what we can do.
Thanks very much, Puleng. I'm just watching the time. I've got another person who's had their hand up for a while, and then I've got a person in the CDI venue. So, Ntandazo, do you want to speak up again?
Yes, friend. I'll be quickly.
Yay.
You know, yes. Basically, I just wanted Puleng, the question of a multidiscipline, which is film, it's not clear. I know you did explain, and I've made a follow-up just now with Peter and Rose. And believe me, they said when anything related to script writing and film is like no, you know. So I think that one, it needs to be clear. So I just maybe encourage internal discussion around that, so that when the communication is sent out there, it's one communication, you know, so that I don't make a mistake twice. Because during PSP, I applied for film, and then again in the money grant management for 2021, I did the same, and then I was rejected. So, but I just want to make sure that there is a one communication that is going through. And one of the things that I wanted to congratulate you as NAC is that proportional funding in terms of urban, rural, and townships. You know, and I really like that. I hope that is going to work. But also, I really like what Before West and Caro are talking about, and which everybody, the spirit of this meeting of collaboration and partnerships in the near future, because one way or another, we need to find a soft spot, and then we need to create a balance so that also we can move as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ntandazo. That is.
Oh, I'm back. I've lost connection there.
Are you back with us, Puleng?
Yeah, there was a question.
No.
Oh, let me repeat, Puleng. What I was saying, Puleng, based on your advice, I did communicate with Pule, you also with Peter Chabalala as well as Maros.
Theater.
And then they told me that the multidiscipline, you know, doesn't accommodate anything that is film-related scripts. So I was saying that it will be a good idea if these issues are communicated internally. And then when you engage us, at least there is one communication. Then we know that NAC has got nothing to do with film script. So because now I've just tested my roles, and then also I spoke to at length with Peter Chabalala around my application. So they say that when it comes to film, it's no, and nothing about multidiscipline that will accommodate film.
Okay, but I was answering your question. You were asking if script writing is accommodated, and I said yes.
Yes.
I didn't see why we wouldn't fund script writing, whether it's for film or not. It's an activity that is within our competence and it can be supported. Then when you start saying you want to erect or implement a film, then it says a different thing altogether.
No, I hear you, ma'am. I share the same sentiment that you are sharing, but I was talking about the script only. I apply for a script development workshop.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yes.
It's a competence of NAC, to be honest.
Yes, but now what I'm saying now, they view that other way around. So it's a discussion for another day. I think let's not
That's an
exhaust.
advice that you got from an official saying that it's got nothing to do with you. Take it up with my manager, because script writing workshop for as writing, as script writing, it's a competency that is within the NAC.
Yes, ma'am. I'm with you 100% on that. Who's your manager, ma'am?
Julie. It's Julie Dipufa, and her email is julie@nac.org.za.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pulling. I'm just mindful of time. There's one other question coming from the CDI room. It's Victor here online.
Pulling, just very briefly, just to confirm, is it a policy directive that funding the rural-urban bias of 60 to 40%? Is that a policy position?
No, it's a scale that is going to be used for the next funding session. It's still under discussion as to how it's the approach. In terms of 60%, it means if it's 10 million, 60% of that 10 million should be going towards the rural funding, and then 40% can go towards other I don't know what to say them, but that's how it's going to be. But it's still going to be discussed.
But it's not policy as yet.
No, it's not. Okay, thank you very much, Pulling. And Jazreel, can we make yours the last question? Because I can see people are getting ready to leave from in venues. Jazreel?
Yes, sorry for it just came up to me. I wanted to ask, what's the possibility? Pumuleng can talk to us via email. I don't know, will we get an email maybe by Yvette or someone? But it will be nice if we can maybe send a proposal to her that she can submit maybe to superiors with regards to what we are suggesting, that we be that vehicle that move around in, especially the central Karoo. It's like almost 15 to 20 towns that I know of around Beaufort West that don't get this information. Just maybe that we work with them to ensure that the message get out there, maybe also assist in explaining, like they explained to us today, the system, how to apply, because many of them wouldn't even have access to apply, just to make sure our rural brothers and sisters really do tap into this opportunity. They did not look like no people from rural areas, they're not interested, they're doing nothing. It's because they don't know. So we would really, I would like to highlight the fact that we avail ourselves to work with the NEC to bridge that gap, especially in the central Karoo. That is like the rural of the rural towns, yes.
Jazreel, thanks very much for that. So, colleagues in the arts, I'm going to bring our session today to an end. From the Association of Visual Arts, ASSITEJ, Suidoosterfees, and the Craft and Design Institute, we thank all of our participants for joining us, and we thank NAC for funding us. And good luck with your NAC applications. Go forward, give it a bash. Bye-bye.